tell you guys that we are looking for progressing people and not people of perfection. And I know you guys have already heard it, but if there's somebody new on live, we love you. We say thank you for coming. We ask that you come back and be with us. The only rule we have is that you are perfect, you're in the wrong place. But if you are progressing, you're in the right place. And we really want you to come back and see us. Flourishing literally means leaning and growing and thriving into something greater. And there's no better chance and no better opportunity than to do that amongst each other as we all grow in God's presence. Amen? Amen. Amen. So we're going to go ahead and get into the word. So I'm coming from the book of Matthew, chapter 26, verses 36 through 44. It says, "Then Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane. And he said to them, 'Sit here while I go over there and pray.' He took Peter and the two sons of Zebedee along with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, 'My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me.' Going a little further, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, 'My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as your will.' Then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. 'Couldn't you men keep watch with me for 1 hour?' he asked Peter. 'Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak.' He went away a second time and prayed, 'My Father, if it is not possible for me to drink this cup, and for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done.' When he came back, he again found them sleeping because their eyes were heavy. So he left them and went away once more and prayed a third time, saying the same thing." In our time together tonight, family, I want to come from a specific title and a specific subject, and that subject is going to be prayer under pressure. Prayer under pressure. Tonight I want to confront a topic that has affected the world since the first man who has walked this earth, which was Adam. This thing has the power and the weight behind it that forces you to make impulse decisions. This thing has the ability to drive you into a place of stress. This thing provides constant force upon you. It makes you feel that you are doing something wrong with every decision that you make. It causes mess-ups. It causes self-doubt. It causes self-hurt. It is what the devil uses to make you think that God has taken his hands off of you. It's been here since day one, and it is still very present today. Family, that thing is pressure. That thing is called pressure. This specific message, God has literally been working on my life since July 25th, 2019. And that's crazy because I wasn't even called to be a minister at that time, but he literally was starting to work on this specific message in my life since that day, July 25th. And you guys may be wondering, AJ, what are you talking about when you say that this specific message was working in your life since July 25th of 2019? And I'm going to tell you, on July 25th in 2019, I was at work at Chick-fil-A. And I got off of work, and I was taking my friend Alexis to Kroger, and I was going to drop him off at his house because I picked him up and was dropping him back off from work every day because he didn't have a ride. But we stopped by Kroger, and then went in and we got our snacks. And as I'm leaving, a man stopped me. And he asks me, he says, "Yo," I said, "What's up, man?" He said, "What is it that you want to do in life?" The most random question I heard all day. I wasn't even trying to have a conversation with anybody. I was literally just trying to get my snacks and go home. But that question really sparked something inside of my mind. The reason why is because I was in a battle between trying to see if I wanted to go to the military or if I wanted to just stay with Chick-fil-A forever or leave. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I said, no, man, I really don't know. He said, well, have you prayed about it? I said, well, I thought I had. He said, no, but I'm talking about have you prayed in your closet about it? And you know, when he asked me that, I got a bit confused because I was like, well, now I haven't prayed in my closet because I didn't know exactly what that scripture was saying when it said you need to get alone in your closet. You know, so he asked me that, and I was like, nah. He said, do you know what a closet is? And I said, well, not really. And he said, that's when you get alone in the presence of God and ask God for answers. He said, so what I want you to do is I want you to go home and I want you to get in that spiritual closet and I want you to pray and ask God for him to send you a sign of what it is that he wants you to do in life. That was the end of the conversation. So I go and drop Alexis off at his house and then I'm headed back to my house and I'm just thinking about what this man had told me. And I was like, okay, well, I need to pray about this. So I get home and before I do anything, I start to pray. And I get alone in God's presence and I ask God, hey God, I'm lost right now. I'm about to graduate high school in a few months and I just don't know what it is I want to do in my life. I'm battling between this and I just need your help. I said, in Jesus' name, your will be done. Not my will. Amen. The very next day, July 26th, I'm at work in the kitchen and I'm making some fries and then I get called into the office to speak with the managers at Chick-fil-A and they asked me a question. And that question was, would you like to become a leader? And that was a sign, in my opinion, from God telling me what it is that I wanted to do in life or that I needed to do in life and that he had called me for. So I set from that point on saying that I was going to be an operator of Chick-fil-A. Because they called me into the office to be a leader at Chick-fil-A. And it's crazy that I'm not at Chick-fil-A right now. But God was putting me through a point of leadership or training in leadership so that I can understand how to lead you guys today in the pulpit. Right? And since that day, when they brought me into the office, they told me something that I would never forget. They said, as a leader, you're going to experience a lot of pressure. You're going to experience a lot of pressure. But it's your choice if you're going to fold under the pressure or if you're going to withstand through the pressure. He said it takes a leader to withstand. But it takes somebody with self-doubt to fold. And since that day, I've just been in the training process of, going through pressure and everything. And in this room tonight, there's a lot of pressure that's going on in people's lives. We got the pressure of not having enough money. You got the pressure of somebody may be ill. You got the pressure of, so much weight on you and you just don't know how to hold it. But I'm here to tell you today that a leader can withstand through that pressure. A one with self-doubt can. So has anybody ever endured pressure in their lives? And when we think about that pressure word, what we automatically result to is negativity. But one thing I want to do tonight is I want to reverse the negative comment saying that pressure is negative. And I want to reverse that curse and tell you that it's actually positive. Can I tell you why it's positive?
Yes.
Because pressure, if you're experiencing pressure at some point in your life, it is where God is really preparing you for something greater. Right? Because you can never get to a place of higher standard if you don't experience the pressure, because if you get to that place of higher standard and you start to experience that pressure, you will shrink all the way back down to square one. So in your life right now, you may be enduring pressure, but pressure is just preparation for you to get to your promise. Can I tell you the second reason?
Yes.
The second reason as to why pressure is positive is because pressure is what the devil uses when he finds you as a threat, to make you feel that God has took his hands off you. And I don't know about you, but I would love to be a threat to the devil. Because every time the devil comes and encounter with me, he knows that he's going to have a battle. The devil don't like ones who fight. So if you're experiencing some type of pressure in your lives, it's either one, because God is preparing you for something greater, or because the devil finds you as a threat. And I really believe that this series has the ability to transform something into your life. And I also believe that it has the ability to change something within you. I believe that it has the ability to answer your questions, and I believe that it has the ability to deliver you. So today we're going to branch off and start a new series that I'm going to be calling Conversation Starters. Everybody say Conversation Starters.
Conversation starters.
And when we think about conversations, what we resort to is talking. And we talk out of our mouths. And our mouths is literally the biggest tool that we use with the smallest things to do. I mean, I can count on my hand a number of things that we do with our mouths. And the top two things is that we eat and that we talk. That's it. And if you ask me, I love to talk. Is there anybody else who loves to talk? Because when you love to talk, you can personally talk to anyone about anything. And the good thing about talking is that talking brings understanding and unity. At Chick-fil-A, going through management, one thing that we had to do and had to learn is how to constantly talk to people. Like, we always had to talk to our employees. The reason why is because we wanted to see what we can better in some employees if we talk to them. That way that they can notice what it is that they struggle at so that they can get better. But if we fail to talk to them, they will never experience growth. So we always have to lean into this conversation with other people to better their jobs qualifications so that they can get better within themselves. But the best thing wasn't that. The best thing about the conversations is having someone who actually listens. Because it's one thing to hear what you say, but it's another thing to actually listen. And I really believe that there's a fine difference between the two. When you hearing something, it's going through one ear and not the other. When you listen to something, you're actually applying what was said to your life and taking action to get it done. Right? So I can hear my mama say, go clean the dishes. I can hear that all day. But if I was to listen to my mom say, go clean the dishes, then I would stop what I'm doing and I would go do what she said. It is a difference between listening and hearing. And we have to understand this wide range that 2022 culture or research has put on conversations. And they really have summed up conversations into 4 categories. You have a debate, which is a competitive two-way conversation. So if somebody is arguing, they're debating. Or if they're trying to persuade somebody else that they need to be doing this, and the other person is trying to persuade somebody else that they need to be doing that, that is the debative conversation. Then you have a dialogue, which is a cooperative two-way conversation. So that's just if Zach and I are talking, just regular about the game, that's a dialogue conversation. Then you have discourse, which is a collaborative conversation, and that is a one-way conversation. So that is what I'm doing to you guys right now. I'm giving you guys information. I'm preaching to you guys. It's a one-way conversation. I'm speaking out to you guys. And you got diatribe, which is a competitive one-way conversation. So if I'm hollering at you, trying to get my point to come across, that is what that type of conversation is. And I know this is a lot about conversation, but literally this entire intro is going to be about conversation, but we're going to get into the word here in a minute. But one thing that I always thought about, and that really sparked this conversation starter series, was when I was working with Wells Fargo. At Wells Fargo, we had this training, a 3-week training before you can get into the teleline. And literally 2 weeks out of the 3 weeks training, we had to learn how to conversate amongst each other. We had to learn how to conversate with our guests. We had to learn how to listen and talk. The whole conversation. And it was kind of odd to me that we had to learn how to do that with working with money, because I'm just like, yo, we supposed to be doing transactions. I'm supposed to be taking your money and doing a transaction with it, but I'm literally learning nothing about money for 2 weeks and strictly talking and listening and conversating. And I wonder what was the purpose. And the purpose literally was so that we can understand how to conversate with somebody about some things that was wrong with their account. So making it past the training period, what we did was we had to go onto the teller line. And on the teller line, on the system on Wells Fargo, in order to access the teller line, there was a button that was on the teller screen, and it said conversation starters. And every time we started a transaction, what we had to do is we had to press this orange conversation starters button in order to start a conversation with the guest. Inside of that conversation starter button, it was conversations about how they can better their account. So when you click it, it was about 5 or 6 things that you had to talk to this person about. And it made me think about something. We have the ability to have a conversation with anybody, right? All we have to do is click that conversation starter button. But what if we had the ability to have a conversation with God by clicking that conversation starter button? What's inside of that conversation starter button that you're trying to bring to God? The things that you struggle with. The things that you're thankful for. The pressure that's going on in your life. So many things can be in that conversation starter button, but you got to be willing to go to God and talk to Him about it. So family, this entire series is going to be about prayer and having conversations with God. And I always tell you guys this, every time I preach, that I would never preach to you guys about something that I'm not currently going through. So this thing has really been working in my life. For the past few months, I literally have been setting my alarm to pray 3 times a day. The reason why I want to pray 3 times a day is because I want to get into the presence of God and learn how to start talking more to God so that He can answer things for me. So if I'm hurting, I'm talking to God. So if I'm happy, I'm talking to God. If I'm sad, I'm talking to God. Because God is the only one who can give me answers to the problems that's inside of my life. So together we're just going to experience and learn about somebody who's very familiar in the Bible, who knew how to pray and who always went to God for answers. And that man's name is Jesus. In our opening scripture, we learned about the Garden of Gethsemane and Jesus going to the Garden of Gethsemane. And the Garden of Gethsemane is so significant. The reason why is because this is where Jesus is literally going to fulfill His calling, and it's basically the starting line for Him to go into crucifixion. But I really want to pause for the cause right there and give you some context to this content that will help you grasp the concept of the text. I ain't gonna lie, y'all, I've been practicing that little one line so I can get it right when I said it to you guys. So I just got a little happy when I said that. But I'm going to just give you guys some context to this content. And I'm going to start, not at verse 36 where we started, but I'm going to start at verse 1. So in verse 1 in Matthew 26, this is when Jesus is going and telling His disciples about Passover and basically telling His disciples that His day of death is coming. Now, if you guys were anything like me, when you guys heard about that, if I was a disciple, I would be beyond sad, which they was. And Jesus basically explained this to them. And then it moves on from that situation when Jesus is literally telling His disciples what is about to happen, to Judas immediately going after and telling and trying to bribe other people about how he can negotiate Jesus to trade Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. So immediately after Jesus is telling His disciples about His death, or predicting His death, Judas decides to go and betray Jesus. Well, not betray yet, but talk to these people, the high priests and the Pharisees, about opportunities of him giving up Jesus. And he finds the opportunity, and he literally took a deal for 30 pieces of silver to hand over Jesus to them. Now he's taking silver, he's taking 30 quarters to hand over the man who would save the world to people who don't like him. So Judas Iscariot started searching for the perfect moment. However, he got to the point at the Garden of Gethsemane when he got the chance to do it. But before that, that's when they had the Last Supper. And you guys know about the Last Supper. That is when Jesus brought all of his disciples with him to have their last meal. And basically, it was the communion. So basically, when Jesus took bread and he took wine and he gave it to the disciples and he broke the bread as symbolization of his body, and he took the wine to symbolize his blood that was going to be shed for. And then Jesus, I guess he's like, well, I already know what's about to happen, so I might as well just go ahead and break the ice. One of you guys will betray me. And all the disciples are like dumbfounded. They're like, you're going to betray you? And Jesus is like, yeah. The one who's going to betray me has his hand in the same bowl as me right now. And Judas looking around like, hey, my hand in the bowl? And he asked this rhetorical question to Jesus. He said, am I the one? And Jesus is like, yeah, you are. And then it goes on down the line where Peter is telling Jesus, well, they leave from the Last Supper and then they head to the Mount of Olives. And Peter is literally telling Jesus that I would never, I don't care who betray you, I would never, I would never betray you. And Jesus tells Peter, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. And then he takes his inner circle to the Garden of Gethsemane. So his inner circle literally consists of his best friends, James, John, and Peter. Those are his inner circle, the ones he could trust the most, right? But when he stopped at the place of Gethsemane, Gethsemane is literally translated as the place of pressure. The definition of the Garden of Gethsemane is oil press, or the place of pressure. Now, it's crazy that Jesus went to the place of pressure when he's literally at the worst time in his life, experiencing the most amount of pressure in his life. So Jesus knows that this is the starting point to him getting betrayed by his disciple, somebody he helped for the longest. And also he knows that he's about to get betrayed, to be lied on, to be spit on, to be beaten, and to be crucified and tortured to death. And it's crazy that Jesus is in the place of pressure at this time. Because he's at the place of pressure when he's about to fulfill his mission in redeeming the world. Now I want us to think about this real quick. So Jesus is literally going to do his calling, but it's in a place of pressure. Usually if we're going to our calling or into our calling, we are happy and ecstatic. But Jesus was under pressure. Jesus was sad. Jesus was troubled. The word says he was troubled and distraught. So in his worst time, he was still going to do his calling in life. And he's experiencing his worst time, but he decides to go to God in prayer, and he prays a sorrowful prayer. And that just proves that you can go to God in any way, shape, fashion, or form about some things that you're struggling with in your life. And I want to break this curse that there has to be a rule book to prayer. You don't have to pray long for God to hear you. You don't have to scream for God to hear you. If you're in a place of pressure, you can go to God and say, God, I don't understand. And God will hear you. And once you go to him with that conversation, he can give you answers on how to make it pass. So there may be something in your life that you're battling in your life currently that feels like a weight is just holding you back down to the ground, and you're so pressurized that you don't know that how you can make it out. And I'm telling you, the way that you can make it out is going to God, and everybody say prayer.
Prayer.
So in this place, Jesus' complete human side was displayed. You know, though Jesus was God, he displayed emotions too. I want to speak to the guys in the room right now. so that we can understand, or so that we can break this curse that culture has put on our heads for too long. That we always gotta hold in our emotions and stay strong. One thing I can say, brother, is that your emotions will relieve so much pressure off of you and allow things to come in to take place in those. So one thing I want to tell you, brother, is that you don't have to be strong in all those situations. The word says, where I am weak, I am strong. I am, what is I am to you? When God told Moses that he was going to be sending him, and Moses said to him, well, what do I say if they're going to tell me who sent me? He said, tell them I am has sent you. So in other words, it says that when I am weak, I am is strong. God is strong for you. So you don't have to hold in those emotions and try to hide them, because God knows how you feel. But it's up to you to start that conversation with him for him to give you answers as to why this is going on in your life. Right? So Jesus literally falls on his face. And as he falls on his face, falling on your face is a symbol of complete, like, I don't know what's going on. So he falls on his face and says, God, is there any other way for me to go about this? Let me know. But not as my will be done, but your will be done. I tell them, hey man, there's no other way. There is no other way. You have to go through it like this. So Jesus goes back to his disciples for comfort. And then he goes back to God for the answer. He says, God, he says it again, God, is there any other way that I can get through this without having to drink this cup? I was like, no, there's no other way. He goes back just to run back to God again and say, God, please, I would do anything. Is there any other way? But not my will, but let your will be done. Can I give you some revelation right there? Which is just revealed truth of why he went back 3 times. The reason why he went back 3 times is because he was trying to symbolize or show people that you can go to God as much as you want, as long as you don't understand. And God will continue to comfort you and give you answers to help you understand. So he goes to God 3 times so that we can see that we can go to God as many times as we want when we're in that time of pressure or when we're in a time of anything, to show them that we can keep going to God for answers. So Jesus was praying there if there could be any other way. And he wanted it to be another way, not because of physical pain, but because of him drinking the cup that would separate him from God. So this cup that Jesus is talking about, he's about to drink, is a cup that's going to literally separate from God. Now we're talking about a relationship that's being divorced or separated that has literally been a part of a relationship since the first day that God created earth. We're talking about Jesus being separated from God. So no more God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. Because Jesus is literally getting separated at this time, which leads to in Jesus as a bystander. And Jesus doesn't want to experience this because this is the only relationship that Jesus has had that has been so positive over his life, that never done anything wrong to him, that loved him unconditionally, but he's literally sending him to die for us. Jesus doesn't want to experience that. So this cup that I'm telling you guys about is filled up with countless numbers of sin. 1 billion drops of sin. For every person in this world, if you lied, that sin was dropped into this cup. If you rape somebody, that sin was dropped into that cup. If you murder somebody, that sin was dropped into that cup. If I cussed you out, that sin is dropped into that cup. And Jesus is noticing this. So all these sins, we sin every day, hundreds of times a day. That thought I was thinking about that girl, that lustful thought, is going into this cup. That adultery is going into this cup. And Jesus is thinking about this, and he's like, yo, I'm one man. I'm one God. And and you want me to take on all of this sin or all of these burdens onto myself, that's hard to do. So Jesus goes to him because he doesn't understand what's going on. He asks God 3 times to give him revelation into this. And he says, but at the end of the day, it's not my will, but let your will be done. Sin separates you from God. Jesus knew this, and he didn't want to be separated. Because if we go back to another garden, which was in the beginning of time, the Garden of Eden, when God literally told Adam not to eat of this fruit, but the devil deceived Eve to eat of this fruit, and so that made Adam go over there and take a bite of it too, and their eyes were open. They started to hide from God. Why did they hide from God? Because that sin separated them from God. Right? And it's crazy that we think about this because when we sin and it separates us from God, we start to resort to other things to try to bring us back. For instance, like our friends. You know, Jesus literally brought his inner circle with him to the Garden of Gethsemane, to the place of prayer, to the place of pressure, but told them to stay behind as he goes forward and pray. Can I put it into a point for you? Jesus took his problems to the Father, not to his followers. Jesus took his problems to his Father and not his followers. So in this time, Jesus is separating himself from his friends because he wants to go to the Father for answers. You know, Matthew 6:6 put it like this, and it speaks on something that I would like to call an isolation prayer. So Jesus is teaching on fasting and praying, and it literally tells us like this. It says, go away by yourself, shut the door behind you, and pray to your Father in private. So although they were a part of his inner circle, they could dissuade him from doing what God has called him to do. So although they was his best friends, they wouldn't have gave God will, they would have gave what they thought was best. Are y'all following?
Yes.
So with them thinking what was best, it wouldn't align with what God had called Jesus to do. So if Jesus would have said, what do you guys think that I should do? They would have probably said something like, well, man, you're God. Why go up there and kill yourself or die for all these people if you're God? Which could have swayed Jesus' mindset about this whole situation. You know, have you ever had the strong urge to do something, but someone in close proximity or in your inner circle told you not to? Can I give you a biblical example of Job? You know, we notice that Job is perfect and upright. The devil is going to and fro, goes to God, and God says, have you considered my servant Job? The devil said, I can't get to him. God said, I will let you get to him. The only thing you cannot do is touch him. The devil said, I bet I'll make him curse you to your face. God said, go ahead. So the devil goes and literally wipes everything out from Job. He wipes everything out from Job. But scripture tells us that Job went and fell down and worshiped. He fell down and worshiped God, although he was under extreme, everybody say pressure. But watch this, his inner circle, or the ones who was in close proximity to him, was trying to get him to go against God. You might as well stop believing in God, because God obviously is mad at you if he's allowing all this to happen. Because his friends said that will make sense. But I'm here to tell you guys today that may make sense, but it wouldn't make miracles. So he turned to his disciples for comfort on how he was feeling, but turned to God for an answer. Friends doesn't give God's will, they give what they think is best. You know, I have an example. Like, there was a time in my life last September when I left Chick-fil-A and I went to, I was out of a job for a couple of months, and I was trying to choose between Wells Fargo and the police department. And I was literally praying, and I know God told me that I need to go to the police department. But I didn't think that I was scared, you know. And so I go to my family members, and I'm asking them, hey, what do you guys think that I should do? And they tell me, well, police is dangerous right there. So you might want to choose Wells Fargo. Gotcha. Wells Fargo. I chose to go with Wells Fargo because of what my inner circle told me to do, not because of what God will wanted me to do. Which made me get into a predicament with Wells Fargo, which left me with me not being there right now. Right? Because I chose to listen to my inner circle and not God. Yeah. Their advice would have made sense, but it wouldn't have made miracles. It makes sense not to give your life because you're God. It doesn't make sense to give your life to save others. It doesn't make miracles to not give your life because you're God. But it makes miracles to give your life to save others. And can I tell you the miracle? You and me. Right? So it makes me think of this thing as far as pressure with balloons. It takes a lot of pressure to get to these balloons. If I blew this balloon up to max level, what will happen is that this balloon will pop. Because there's too much pressure on the balloon. But if I blew up the balloon with just enough pressure, it will look its best. And God is blowing something up in you right now to the point where you're feeling like you're about to pop. But what if God was just blowing just enough for you to fly? Right? Because if I blew this balloon up this much and I let it go, it wouldn't go nowhere. But if I stuck this balloon and I filled up with so much pressure, so much preparation for my promise, then this balloon will fly all over the place. Right? Because God literally reminds us in Jeremiah 29:11, he says, for I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans of a hope and of a future. So if God is giving you so much pressure, it ain't to harm you. It's of that first thing. Plans to prosper you. Pressure to prosper you. You know, not to harm you, not to put you in a position where you don't think you can make it. Just a position so that you can fly into your, everybody say, calling.
Calling.
Pressure produces promise. You know, God told me to intentionally tell you that he's intentionally giving you pressure because he wants you to fly. And make sure you stay prayed up under your pressure, because when you stay prayed up, you won't experience the pop. Now I'm gonna say this last thing and I'm gonna get out of here. Exactly, you go cut on the music. But you just press play on YouTube. But the thing about that is that everybody in our lives, we're going to experience pressure points. Right? We're going to experience pressure points. What are our pressure points? Pressure points are literally defined as certain areas in your life where you will experience extreme, watch this word, temporary pain. It's where you will experience extreme, temporary pain. Which means that these pressure points aren't forever issues or forever pain, they're just temporary. Which means that they will eventually subside. Somebody says it like this, every time he says it like this, pain is temporary. It may last for a minute, it may last for an hour, or it may last for a day, or even a year. But eventually it will subside. And something else will take its place. If I quit, however, it will last forever. So I'm here to tell you today that pressure points are necessary in your lives, because if you never experience down, you will never be able to withhold up. If you never experience down, you will never be able to withhold up. So Jesus in this story literally demonstrated perseverance under pressure, to show us that even though I'm in my time of pressure, Even though I know all this is on my back and on my shoulders, I cannot give up because the world is dependent on it. Don't fold under pressure, guys. With Jesus not throwing in the towel, while he was under so much pressure, it granted a great reward, which is you and I. What if he would have thrown in the towel? Will we be able to be having this meeting right now? We wouldn't. But he decided to have perseverance under that pressure and say, even though it's hard on my life, even though I'm going through so much, even though somebody is ill in my family, even though I know that I'm about to die, I can't give up. Because the world needs me. So he chose to relieve his pressure with prayer. Shake off your pressure with a prayer reliever. Not a stress reliever, not a pain reliever, but a prayer reliever. Because prayer under pressure will soon turn into peace under pressure. You know, I got this story about when I was breaking my arm, and when I broke my arm, I experienced so much pressure in my arm. So much. Somebody pushed me out the lunchbox, fell on bricks, ran my way home, boo-hooing, because I had so much pressure in my arm. Got home, my mom tells me, boy, your arm ain't broke, boy, let me put an 8 bands on there and give you some pain medicine. God. She wraps it up with an 8 bandage, gives me some Tylenol, some pain pills, to temporarily try to relieve my pain. And that's exactly what it did. I had the 8 bandage on, and the pain medicine eventually wore off. And once it wore off, I started to experience this extreme amount of pain in my arm. Because the pain medicine was only temporary. So as I'm experiencing this pain, I'm hollering at my mom, says, oh snap, your arm is broken. So she rushed me to the emergency room. They put a cast on, and the cast is what actually healed my pain. Or healed my pressure. And where I'm going with this, because God gave me revelations that, and you know what, like something may be going on, and you may be trying to resort to something else to relieve that pressure. The video game may be a pain reliever. Social media may be a pain reliever. Talking on the phone 24/7 may be a pain reliever. Going to do so-and-so is a pain reliever. Because eventually that can't last forever. And then eventually you'll be back in that place of depression. Because the pain medicine wore off. And I'm here to tell you guys today that forever pain reliever is right here in this room with us. God. And so, as we close, guys, Jesus, as he's in this place of pressure, he continues to keep fighting. He knows there's so much pressure. He knows it's hard. He knows that he just got betrayed, but he keeps fighting. He gets handed over to the high priest and the Pharisees. Peter slices off an ear. But Jesus picks up the ear and put it back on, you're healed. And he literally gets kidnapped by the high priest and Pharisees because they were jealous. But one thing that Jesus did was that he kept fighting. He gets to the Roman governor and they literally like trying to kill the innocent man, but Jesus keeps fighting. They decide to go ahead and crucify him, and you know that everybody is cheering, but Jesus keeps fighting. They put a crown of thorns on his head, but Jesus keeps fighting. They take him out to the courtyard and beat him, but Jesus keeps fighting. They picked him up and they spit on him and slapping him in his face and cussing him out, but Jesus keeps fighting. They put an old rugged cross on his back, but Jesus keeps fighting. He has to march and hold this cross going up miles, but Jesus keeps fighting. He gets to the top of the mountain and they literally hang him on the cross. breaks his arm, put nails into his own hands, stretches his legs out, put nails into his feet. But Jesus keeps fighting. Hung him high, stretched him wide, he hung his head, he said these words, my God, why have you forsaken me? At that time, Jesus didn't know what was going on. He was like, man, I thought that I was doing everything right. I thought that I was loved by you. But you allowing all this to happen. My God, why have you forsaken me? But Jesus, he's fighting. He hung his head and he died at that moment. Hours later, it's amazing because Jesus literally rose up. 3 days later, he decided to rise up with all power in his hands for you. And what Jesus wants us to do is that he wants us to accept him in our lives as personal Lord and Savior because he did everything for us.